Christine, hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Looking forward. This looks like our biggest one yet, Max.
It is. I think we've got over 150 people dialed in, and because we had such a big number, I'm going to do something that I haven't asked you if we could do. But let me give the brief for everyone who's listening on Facebook and LinkedIn and Zoom, and also on the record and on the podcast. Anyone, if you've got your video on, can you turn it off, please? If anyone's got their audio on, can you turn it off? So this is the Women in Food and Farming broadcast. This is our fourth broadcast that we're very excited to say. We've had previously on the brilliant Anna Harris, the brilliant Sharon Kennett, and the brilliant Jane Craigie. And today we got a fantastic speaker, Hilary Lees, who's going to talk to us about resilience. But come on, who are Women in Food and Farming? They're a group of professional women in food, agriculture, and the land-based industries at all stages of their careers who get together to discuss business issues, support each other via mentorship and advice, and help generate networks of contacts that might be useful to themselves and their businesses. Women in Food and Farming was formed by Christine Tacon CBE. The group started in 2011 with just 5 women and has now grown to, I've got to my notes, Christine, 400 members, but you must be over 400 by now.
Over 400 by now, yes, yeah.
And Christine is known to many as the first Grocery Code Adjudicator and head of the co-op's farming businesses. She's recently been appointed chair of Assured Food Standards, which operates the Red Tractor Assurance Scheme, amongst other roles. Christine, when I was setting this up, I was just looking at my agenda for today because it's fairly packed. Can I just read it to you, please, Christine?
Yes.
So the agenda is Max and Christine catch up. We have the great speaker, Hilary Lees. We're going to have the group member videos on the resilience subject that Hilary's going to be speaking on. But then, Christine, we're going to set a world record. And then we're going to go into the breakout rooms. So, Christine, does that agenda sound okay?
Yes, I'll wait and see what the world record is. But yeah, that's fine.
Let's come here. Well, because we've got 150 people dialed in, I realised that there isn't an official record for how many people have had their pets on a Zoom call. So everyone, when we get to post the videos, we're going to get all of the feeds live. There's 150 of you on. And if you can all hold up your pet, whether it be your dog, your cat, your gerbil, to see if we can set this unofficial world record of how many pets with their owners we can get on a Zoom call. And don't worry, if you don't have a pet, get your favorite pot plant and we're going to wave that. According to the Guinness Book of Records, we've got to have the pets live for 12 seconds. So you can imagine this chaos of 150 windows open, Christine, with all these pets or pot plants. Christine, is that okay if we go for that later on in the broadcast?
Absolutely fine, yep.
Excellent. Okay, so Christine, why are we speaking to Hilary Lees today on the subject of mental fitness? What prompted you to go down this route, please?
Oh, well, that was all down to Anna. When Anna did her talk about ambition in the breakout rooms afterwards, the whole issue of resilience kept coming up in the conversation. And so we decided that as soon as we could get a speaker, we would, given that we meet every first Tuesday of the month, I thought, well, I will slot a resilience speaker in when I find one. And I actually went to a lady called Joy Burnford, who has spoken to one of our non-virtual Women in Food and Farming meetups on confidence. And I said to her, can you help me find a speaker? And that's how I found Hilary.
Fantastic. Hilary, would you like to join us?
Yeah, no problem. Can you see me?
Fantastic. And here we can. Here's Hilary. So let me just give a bit of a background on Hilary. Christine, just stay there for a minute. Hilary is a mental fitness expert, executive and career coach, public speaker and trainer who formerly spent 20 years working as an occupational therapist in a variety of NHS mental health services. Through her business, the Resilience Consultancy, she helps business leaders build their mental fitness so they can respond positively to changing demands and challenges in order to enhance their performance, improve relationships, as well as improve their well-being. Hilary, how does that sound? Were we spot on?
That sounds perfect. Thank you, Max.
So, Christine, what I'm so encouraged by the way that you've looked to structure these broadcasts, with the way that we've had Anna Harris, Sharon Kennett and Jane Craigie. What's been so great about those previous speakers is how we've learned so much from them. So it's great that we got Hilary on. Christine, before we go live from Hilary, what would you like to gain from this broadcast and learn from Hilary, so that we can all learn from you, Christine?
Well, I've already had a chat with Hilary beforehand, and she made me do my saboteur analysis. And so I produced a little video about the results. But I can just say to everybody, when she puts that link up, do it yourselves, because everybody that's done it has come back to me and said it is frighteningly accurate. So I think you'll all learn a little bit about how you react, and doing this little saboteur analysis will give you some tips on how to behave in future when you need to be that bit more resilient. But I think the other thing, just to mention, Max, if I may, is that you've gone and produced podcasts of all our past speakers, so people can go back and have a look at them afterwards, which I think it's a great asset, and it's only just gone live. So there's all that links on your Beanstalk Global, isn't it?
It is. So if you want to listen to the previous podcast, if you just go to your podcast provider and put in Beanstalk Global, they're all downloads for you, all of the broadcasts that we've done, including Women in Food and Farming. So we haven't got much time. So Christine, could I ask you to turn your video off? Henrietta Green, Jan England, can I ask you to turn your videos off? It's lovely to see you, but we don't need you on at the moment. Jan, bottom left-hand corner. Someone down there to turn your video off. You could do it. So just to give you the timetable, and myself and Hilary, we're going to talk for about 20-25 minutes. We're then going to show some of the videos of some of the members on their view of resilience on the back of having previous conversations with Hilary. We'll then have a catch up with them, and then we're going to go for this world record attempt and try and get you all to show your pets or your pot plants, so we can get some nice recording of that. So come on, Hilary, introduce yourself, and can you give us a bit of background as to how you came to be here supporting business leaders with their mental fitness and resilience, especially in these times?
Well, yeah, quite apt, really, given our current climate. So professionally, you've already given a bit of my background. I worked as an occupational therapist, as you've already explained. For 10 years, the last 10 years of my 20-year mental health career, I worked in a psychological therapy service in primary care, so in GP surgeries, and I specialised in supporting employees that were burning out or struggling with anxiety and depression. And I got really frustrated that as a clinician, we were only ever treating people when their burnout or their anxiety and depression had really hit the fan and was really quite severe. I wanted to do more to prevent that slide into severe mental ill health, because it was such a waste of talent, and it had such a major impact, not just in terms of cost for those individuals and their lives, but for the businesses that they were working with. So that sowed the seed for me. And then I became self-employed. It's a long story. In 2015, I left the NHS and I went full-time as a coach and trainer and set up my company. But my passion for resilience goes deeper than just my professional experience. I have personal experience of overcoming anxiety and overcoming burnout, particularly in my late 20s. And I need to give a bit of a flavour of my story to explain some more of what I'm going to be talking to. So my mother, I grew up with a very anxious mother. My mum had a very traumatic childhood. Her mum had schizophrenia and was put into a mental institution when my mum was 15 and her dad had suddenly died. So effectively, my mum was orphaned. But being of the stoical war generation, she didn't deal with any of this emotional trauma. She just sort of suppressed it, pushed it all down, did the stiff upper lip and carried on. And suffice to say, it came out in lots of anxiety as I was growing up. I didn't know anything about my mum's past until I was 25 and training to become an occupational therapist in mental health services. But then all of a sudden, a lot of jigsaw pieces fell into place. And I kind of realised that I needed to do a bit of work on my inner world. So growing up with my anxious mother and quite a volatile father, I should say, I learned to look after my mum. I became a pleaser. And I also was somebody that was very bright, very academic. So I got a lot of attention from when I was achieving. So it set me up as a pleaser. The saboteur assessment that Christine was talking about, this will make sense later in the presentation. And also a hyperachiever, which meant I was very externally focused on meeting the needs of others in order to feel good about myself. And that kind of sowed the seeds for the burnout that I went through in my late 20s. And then I went on a long journey of personal development, and I started looking at my interior world. And fast forwarding to more recent times, in the last 6 years, we've lost 5 family members, including my dad to cancer, my mother-in-law to Alzheimer's. We were her main carers. So we had elder care responsibilities, junior responsibilities, so have young kids. We have lost another father to, sort of sudden death. I've had redundancy for myself and my husband, setting up a business, financial stressors, bringing up children. If you could think about all the things that could hit somebody, they've all hit in the last 5. And then COVID, obviously, last year, by which point I was a past master at dealing with uncertainty and change. And the tools and techniques that I now use as a professional, but I also use for myself, they're very much tried and tested, and I walk my talk. We often depend on outer circumstances to feel happy, but actually, if we can control our inner world and learn how to stay centered and grounded, we can calmly respond to the challenges, and we can build our resilience muscles. It's very much an inner game. And oftentimes we're so externally focused in terms of doing that we don't focus much on our being. So I'm here today to kind of share some advice and guidance in the short space of time that we have, and talk about mental fitness and how that fits in with this.
So Hilary, what exactly is resilience? And how does it relate to mental fitness? What is resilience?
So resilience is our capacity to adapt well to stressful events, to spring back from hardship, and even to thrive in the face of adversity, trauma, or tragedy. It's important. So with resilience, there's some key components. It's about flexibility in how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. And it's also about positivity and a positive mindset, which sounds so simple in theory. People kind of recognize resilience. They think of it as bouncing back. I think of it like a slinky toy, that sometimes we get stretched by life and the things that we go through, and then we come back to a different place to where we were at the beginning because we've learned about ourselves in the process. So people broadly understand resilience, but they don't understand or don't quite get how to do it, put it into practice. Mental fitness is a practice. It's a way of building resilience muscles. So just as we go to the gym to build our physical health and our physical muscles, there are practical tools and techniques that we can employ to build our mental muscles so that we can respond to life's challenges with a positive, flexible mindset. And Positive Intelligence is a mental fitness program. I'm going to show you a book. I don't know if you can see it because of my silly screensaver. It's not showing up, is it? Anyway, there's the mental fitness program that I teach and that I facilitate is based on positive intelligence. And I'm going to be talking about that a bit later on in my presentation. The saboteur assessment fits into that. Yeah.
But thank you. So as human beings, why are we not? I just waved my dog earlier, who's a very resilient 6-year-old Labrador. Why are we, who are meant to be far more intelligent, why are we not more resilient? I suppose what gets in our way? Is it our intelligence in some respects that gets it? Why are we not naturally more resilient?
Well, it is actually linked to our intelligence to some extent. It's linked to the ways that our brains are wired. So we are wired to respond to the world around us negatively. So we respond innately negatively to stresses or threats that we perceive in our midst. And to understand resilience, we need to understand its opposite, which is how we respond to stress. So most of us have heard of fight, flight, freeze, the stress response. I'm not going to kind of go into any great detail about that because most people have got a rudimentary understanding. But not many of us understand quite the impact that stressors have on our minds. So I'm going to talk about the way our brains work when we are experiencing stress. The only way I can demonstrate this is by using our hands. I would like I know you've told everyone to turn their screens off. Could they turn their screens on for this bit? Because it's a bit interactive. Excellent. And I don't just want to stare at it. Fantastic. Well done. Just briefly. That's better. I can see a few faces now. So obviously the brain I have is in my head. I'm using it to think through what I'm talking to you about. So we're going to demonstrate what happens to our brain under stress by the use of our hands. So if you put your hands up for me, everybody kind of worship me with your hand here. Lovely. The part of our brain that fires the stress response is a little tiny bit of the brain called the amygdala. It's about this big, and it's at the base of our skull as the spinal column meets our brainstem at the back of our head. So if you pass your thumb across your palm like this, the tip of your thumb here is your amygdala. So this is the part of the primitive brain that fires the stress response. And then the fleshy part of your thumb here is your hippocampus, which is your emotional memory center. So when you add the hippocampus and the amygdala together, you've got the emotional limbic system. And this is our primitive reptilian brain. So all of our emotional memories are stored here. All of the times we've faced previous stresses and what have you. This is what, in positive intelligence terms, we call our survivor brain, the basic brain. So when we were cavemen or women, this was all the brain that we had. And it's what enabled us to survive, threats from primitive predators and the like. Over the thousands of years, we've evolved our higher brain. So if you close your fingers over your thumb for me to form a fist, this higher cortex is what we often think about when we think of a brain. It's the cauliflower bit of the brain. This is where our executive functioning resides. So our thinking, our rational thinking, our concentration, our decision making, our ability to be laser focused and clear-headed, our empathy, our creativity, and our innovation all live in this higher brain. So you've got a survivor brain, lower brain, where the stress response lives. You've got the higher brain, where all of our resourceful sort of self lives. So in positive intelligence terms, they call this the sage brain, and this is the saboteur brain. So what happens is normally, if life's going how we want it to, this is us in our flow, and both parts of the brain are working in conjunction. But when we come across a stressor, our amygdala fires and we flip our lids. So flip your lids for me. And we lose up to 60% of our rational thinking brain when our primitive survivor brain has taken over. And when we stay in this stressed state, it explains why we have what clients have said to me clinically: I've got a fog in my brain, I can't think straight, I can't make the simplest of choices or decisions. What we need to do is know how to calm this down so that we can get our full faculties back when we're facing challenges or stresses in our life. And that's what resilience is. It's about helping us to calm this state down and helping us to energize ourselves in the face of the demands that we face. Does that make sense?
It does. Totally. Especially, I'm sure everyone agrees with me, especially the fog bit. When you're in that stress, you panic, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense. So, Hilary, do you want everyone to stay in, or would you like them to turn off the video again?
I don't mind if they want to stay or if they want to go. If they want to be anonymous, that's fine by me. But I just needed to see. I like to see the hands going. Okay.
No problem. If everyone could turn off their video just because of the live feeds that we're streaming to, that would be great. Sorry, Hilary. So core factors that help us build our resilience muscles. Then is there a way of actually training this? Have you got top tips that you can give to us that we can take away and implement?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. And I think there's some people that are going to be listening to this on a podcast afterwards. So I will talk through, because you won't obviously be able to see the slides. There's 6 steps to build resilience. So as a clinician, as a coach, as a trainer, these are the sort of the areas that I cover when I do resilience training or coaching. The first thing is to reset our brain using our breath or our senses. So the flip lid bit that we've just done is, in medical terminology, our sympathetic nervous system. We also have a parasympathetic nervous system. I'm blinding you with science now. Our relaxation response. So you have a stress response and you have a relaxation response, and they're like two sides of the same coin. The quickest way to calm down the mind and switch off the amygdala is by slowing down our breath, particularly the out breath. So I'm going to just get you, it's why mindfulness techniques have become so prevalent in the workplace. They're very popular. So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate a couple of minutes, or not even that really, a sort of a minute or so of kind of mindful breathing, in order that you can see the difference in terms of setting the brain or resetting the brain. So I'd like you to shut your eyes so that you can kind of close down that visual processing. And then I want you to take a deep breath in through your mouth. And then I want you to blow out through your nose. So take a deep breath in through your nose and then blow out through your mouth as if you're blowing a balloon, and elongate that out breath. And now take another deep breath in through the nose and breathe out slowly through your mouth. And And now just observe your breathing. Let it come back to a natural rhythm. And place one hand on your belly. So just observe that as you breathe in, the belly rises. And as you breathe out, the belly falls. So observe as you breathe in, the belly rising. And as you breathe out, the belly falling. And then one last one. As you breathe in, notice the temperature of air in your nostrils as you breathe in. And notice the temperature of air in your nostrils as you breathe out. Once again, the temperature of air as you breathe in your nostrils. And compare that to the temperature of air as you breathe out. So it's just a way of grounding us. When we slow our breath down and we come into our senses, it brings us into the now in a mindful moment. And from a physiological point of view, there's a vagus nerve that runs from our diaphragm to our amygdala, the part of the brain that triggers the stress response. So when we slow our breathing down, it sends a message via the vagus nerve to the amygdala that the danger is passing. It's one of the quickest ways to reset and get our full faculties back. So I'm going to run through these other ones quite quickly. There's emotion regulation. We're not typically taught to manage our emotions particularly well, or sometimes even recognize them. Certainly for me in my younger life, it took a while for me to learn my emotions. Oftentimes we numb emotions, particularly negative emotions, things that we find difficult. We might numb through overworking or through Netflix or through comfort eating or through myriads of ways. But actually emotion is just energy in motion. That's what emotion is, whether it's a positive or a negative emotion. It's there to serve a purpose, to tell us that something in our environment needs our attention. So regulating emotion, allowing ourselves to feel emotion, and then process it, allow it to move through us, is a really healthy thing to do. For some of us, that may be through journaling and processing that way. Talking it through, as women, we do a lot of sharing with people that have earned the right to that trust. It's where therapy comes into the picture, finding somebody that we trust, that's objective, that can help us process emotion. Then there's vitality, which is things that we're familiar with. It's our third lockdown. We need to go out for regular exercise, get some fresh air every day, the healthy diet, having adequate sleep. What we're less familiar with are the natural rhythms that our bodies go through. We have a 90-minute circadian rhythm where our brain and our body are kind of maximized in terms of the energy. So over time, we need to have sufficient reset breaks in between all the doing and the frenetic activity. How many of us stop every few hours to take a few deep breaths or to center ourselves? One of the things I do as a coach with my clients, when we've all got a tyrannical to-do list, is I get them to write a to-be list where they start thinking about ways that they can factor in this reset time to reconserve their energy. Alignment, I'm going to touch on very quickly, is about thinking about our values, thinking about our life purpose, and the parts of our spiritual self, if you like, that gives meaning and purpose to the work and to our home lives. I do values work exploration with clients. There is a free tool. It's a positive psychology tool called the VIAsurvey.org, valuesinactionsurvey.org. Where you can kind of look up and explore your own values for yourselves. Mindset and positivity are the key. So the resetting the brain, the mindset and the positivity are the main bedrocks of building resilience muscles. When we are stressed and we've flipped our lids, our minds kind of focus on the very narrow. They look at the danger in front of us for obvious survival reasons. When we were cavemen or women, if there's a saber-toothed tiger in our midst and we're busy looking at the mulberry bush over here, we're going to be eaten very quickly. So it's there for evolutionary survival reasons. But it can get very undermining in terms of our day-to-day life. And we have particular kind of gremlin saboteurs, as we're going to come on and explore, that undermine our performance, our happiness, our well-being, and interfere with our relationships. So we need to challenge this negative bias that we have, which is where the positivity comes in. Our brains are wired to like Velcro to negativity and Teflon to positivity because of this innate wiring. So we need to cultivate positivity through things like gratitude journals. I've certainly found that in lockdown really helpful, to think about the 5 things every day that I'm grateful for, or to list the 3 things that have gone well each day, despite all the challenges that we face. Are you still with me, Max? Because I can't hear you.
I am. I'm just so amazed by everything that you're saying. It's so logical, but to actually hear someone talk about it in such a clear and concise manner, I'm blown away.
Yeah. I mean, I teach this stuff, as I say, and I go through these steps with clients that come to me for coaching. But one of the frustrations I had, even as a coach and trainer, was that I teach this, it raises awareness, it raises insight, but it wasn't necessarily getting to the root causes and building mental muscles. And then in the summer last year, I discovered the positive intelligence course. I went on it myself, again, practicing what I preach. And it takes all of these elements and it applies it in a very practical, very transformative way, using an app and using kind of weekly videos. So I'm going to come on and talk about that, if that's all right with you. I'm conscious of time as well. How am I doing for time?
No, don't worry about that, because we're all learning from you. So let's go into detail. If you could just stop the slide share, unless you've got other slides to share. I
think I was going to share one which is related to what I was going to talk about. So if I just quickly show.
Carry on.
What were you going to say, Max? Sorry.
No, I wanted to find out more details about the fitness program. So off you go.
Okay, cool. So talking about mindset, this is where the mental fitness, positive intelligence mental fitness program comes in. So a gentleman called Shirzad Shameen, who is a engineer by background, he's a CEO or was CEO of the Coaches Training Institute where I trained. He designed this course and this program that I now deliver along with many other coaches. And I'm so, as I say, I'm blown away by the impact it's had. So we all have saboteurs in our heads. We all have negative critters, I call them gremlins, that undermine our performance. So the big one on the screen, for those of you that can see it, is the judge, a universal judge. Everybody has an inner critic that tells them they're not good enough, they're not worthy, they're going to get found out. But it also judges other people, and it also judges circumstances, and it leads to the root cause of a lot of the negativity that we feel. And then on the right, there's pictures here of 9 other saboteurs, things like controller, hyperachiever, restless, stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, avoider, victim, and hyper-rational. We all have 1 or 2 of these accomplice saboteurs that work in conjunction with our judge, and they are our default response to stress, which are formed in our childhood. They're often formed in relation to, circumstances or situations we grew up in. So I gave you my story earlier, and there was a reason for that. I grew up with the pleaser and the hyperachiever, as I mentioned earlier. My mother was, given her background, hypervigilant. My father was a controller. So, there's also, everybody has a mixture of saboteurs, and then they also have the higher brain, the sage. So remember, saboteurs are our fight or flight survival mechanism, but we have a higher brain, a sage. And before I move on from explaining this bit, there's a free saboteur assessment that I know Christine and some of the other ladies here have done. And you get results that tells you out of 10 how strong your saboteurs are. So this person here, there's a bar chart here, and it's a stickler 7.5, hyperachiever 7.5, and so we go. So this lady's top 2 accomplice saboteurs are these ones. The purpose of doing this is, obviously, self-awareness is crucial in building resilience. So the more we know, hang on, I'm going to stop sharing now. The more we know what our enemies are internally, the more we can start doing some work to change them. Because our saboteurs cause all our stress and anxiety, our self-doubt, our frustration, our guilt, our regret, our shame, our unhappiness. And they come from this survivor brain, but we can learn to turn down the dial, if you like, on these saboteurs. And we can turn up the dial on our sage brain. So there's 5 sage powers that we have. We have empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. And the way that the program does this is to teach practical tools and techniques each week in a 7-week program, online program, 1 hour a week video, and then 15 minutes practice a day with an app like a mind gym. And you learn. So we're going to give you a PQ rep. When we did the breathing, I was going through a PQ rep with you. That thing about noticing your breath and noticing the senses. it's very much in the here and now. And what it does, it's like a pattern interrupter. So when you notice a critical thought, like I had in the middle of the night, oh God, I don't know if I'm going to, I'm starting to think I need to add more expertise in, that judge saying you're not good enough, you're going to get found out. I had to label it, oh, there goes my judge again. And then I did this PQ rep. So I'm going to get you to do it. If you just pick 2 fingers and rub them together gently and pay such close attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers. So let go of any thoughts you're having and just concentrate on the sensation as you're rubbing those 2 fingers together so well that you can feel the fingertip ridges. This is called a PQ rep, positive intelligence rep. And you just do it for 10 seconds when you notice that negative thought or the belief. And it starts shifting the neurology of the part of the brain that's wired with the saboteur. It starts shifting it into the higher brain, the sage brain. So, and I was a bit cynical when I first heard this, but believe me, I've done this course and it makes the world of difference. So it's weakening the internal saboteurs and it's strengthening our higher brain. And you can measure it over 7 weeks. When they've done this in 500,000 participants across 20 countries, from Fortune 500 CEOs to athletes to Stanford University students. The Stanford University students called it Jedi mind training, which my kids love. I'm not into Star Wars, so it leaves me a bit cold. But anyway, but they've shown, when people do this program, it multiplies their happiness, obviously because you're getting rid of a lot of negativity. People on average are 30 to 35% more productive, perform better, they're 3 times more creative, they're 10 times happier. It's just really transformative. And I know I'm evangelizing, but I love facilitating this program and I've seen such benefits. I've got my husband doing it now and he's become a complete convert. It's such an important thing to develop that self-awareness and to develop this ability to intercept the stresses, because we can't change what happens to us externally, but we can change how we respond internally. And that's what this is about.
So Hilary, so many people I know that use the expression of boxes. They put all the bad things in boxes and they just hold them down. So what are you inferring? That if we've got good mental fitness, it's going to make a fundamental difference to our lives?
Absolutely. I think they should teach this in schools. I get quite evangelical about the fact that starting with my youngest, who has some anxiety issues, it obviously runs in the family. I'm teaching him about gremlins and not believing everything that his mind thinks. And some of the PQ reps he does at school when he's feeling a bit, it's got such a practical application, but we focus so much in our education system and in our professional lives in external knowledge, but so rarely do we ever do anything that's about empowering our own minds, really, so that we can actually make best use of all those external courses and experiences that we come across. Yeah.
And Hilary, what's so good about you is that you've been through this journey and the way that you present yourself with the passion and the dedication, it just seems incredibly genuine that you've been there. You utilize the likes of this course to actually help you, and now you want to help others. I love to make a difference. That's my core motivation. It always has been. It always will be. I'm in business, but I'm here to do good. I'm here to make a difference, and make a difference to people, planet, and profit. If that makes sense. So yeah. Excellent. Well done. So Hilary, we tasked a few of the ladies to do a video that they've done previously, where they've just held up an iPhone and they've talked about their resilience. Is it okay, Hilary, if we play that video so that we can all see it?
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what they've made of it. Actually, yeah, it'd be good. Are we going to have a Q&A afterwards?
Yeah, we are as well. So just for the podcast, as Kirsty gets the video set up, we're going to hear from Christine. We're going to hear from Emily Norton. We're going to hear from Debbie. We're going to hear from Kirsty, and we're going to hear from Eve. So Kirsty, if you're okay to play the video, and Hilary, if you just turn off your video, and I'll turn off my video, and here comes the amazing Kirsty.
Resilience is a new word in management speak, and certainly not something talked about at the beginning of my career. I did the saboteur test that Hilary sent to me, and I was shocked to find that the saboteurs are created in childhood. So it was no surprise to me to know that I was a hyperachiever, because I felt that as a child that I would only be approved of if I succeeded. And the things that resonated with me is that I don't linger over failures. I only feel worthy if I'm successful, and I feel I must be efficient and effective. But that also makes me resilient, and I find that by focusing on results when I'm at work or getting things done at home, and also by every time something goes wrong, I'm always looking for the silver lining in every cloud. I don't linger over the cloud itself. But those close to me will know that when they're down, I will be focusing on what they should be doing, and I'm always trying to give them solutions. But I am starting to learn that it's enough just to listen. So please bear with me. Thank you.
So we've been asked to do a piece on what is resilience. And I was just thinking, I've just done a presentation for a client. And I was the only woman on the call. And at the start of the call, I left my desk to go and shut the blind because it's really sunny today. And I could hear a colleague in earshot, because everyone was talking before the meeting started on Zoom. And he said, Amy looks like she's wearing a dressing gown. And I'm not, I'm just wearing a dress. And I was thinking about an interview with Jurgen Klopp yesterday before the Liverpool-Man United game. And he said, confidence is like a flower. You stand on it and it crushes it, and it takes a long while for it to grow. Well, resilience is probably building that flower out of concrete or something. I don't know. I mean, it's like not to let those little niggly comments get to you. And yeah, it got to me, and I'm annoyed at my colleague saying that. So perhaps my resilience needs to be better. But at the same time, don't let those comments squash your flower. Remain resilient, and you are awesome.
So, thinking about resilience, I thought the exercise of trying to identify your saboteurs and the people or the things that would stop you succeeding was really good. And I guess perhaps an addition is hints and tips of how to be more resilient. For me, one of the biggest things was preventing my week deteriorating, particularly towards the end of the week, because I was tired. And when I was tired, I started getting bugged by wrong emotions. So one of the things I tried to planfully do was plan to not get tired at the end of the week. And often that was by having sort of 3 fairly big days, and then being a bit kinder to myself on Thursdays and Fridays. So I sort of planned my week better. I also tried very hard to not take on too much stuff to do in achieving any goals, and particularly if there was a new project, trying to work out who and how could best achieve things rather than it having to be me that had to do it. So there was a bit of stop and think, and making time to stop and think and plan. That definitely helped. And then the other thing that helped me is there are always jobs to do every day that you don't want to do, you put off, that are kind of like they're not wanted to do jobs. So I now think each day, what's the best time of the day for me to do them, and when I have done them, to reward myself. So those are my tips.
So I never actually needed to do the saboteur test to know that one of my biggest triggers and one of the reasons why I react in certain ways is my desire and my need to keep people happy and to make people think of me as a good and nice person. So finding out that my sort of top rating was as a pleaser really didn't come as a surprise. What was quite surprising is how this can actually have a negative effect on other people, and the negative effect that will have on me as a result. So putting myself under that sort of constant pressure to make sure everything goes smoothly, make sure that everybody's happy around me, doesn't make them feel good about themselves, and also makes me feel extremely stressed. And then when things go that mean I can't keep people happy, the knock-on effect that has on me and my ability to deal with things can actually be really negative. So one of the things that I sort of hope to gain from these types of sessions are actually some tools around how do you sort of break those negative chain reactions, especially to a trait which can be seen as quite a positive thing, because obviously everybody wants to be kind and thoughtful. But it's really important to understand actually that protecting people from their own mistakes or their own errors isn't being kind or thoughtful, it's actually quite damaging to them. And so hopefully that is something that as I sort of develop and grow within my career, I can learn to break that negative chain reaction.
Being resilient in the workplace implies that you're able to accept criticism without taking it personally or being able to adapt when the situation changes. I completed the saboteur assessment, which laid out the ways in which my mind becomes my worst enemy. I didn't know what to expect, but I was surprised at how accurate the results were. I know that I'm a perfectionist and I definitely suffer from imposter syndrome. I set incredibly high expectations of myself as though I need to prove that I am meant to be where I am. I rated 8.8 out of 10 as a stickler, 8.8 out of 10 as a hyperachiever, and 8.1 out of 10 as a pleaser. In September, I joined Pro-Agrica as a permanent employee after completing a 2-year graduate scheme, and my new role was taking over from someone who was on the cusp of retiring. Initially, I thought this overlap would be beneficial for handing over the ropes, etc., but I found that they did not want to let go, and I was left with very little to do on a daily basis. As you can imagine, given my traits, I felt a huge amount of self-doubt and anxiety about not working anywhere near my capacity and worrying what people were thinking about the work that I was doing. I eventually spoke to my manager about my concerns, and he had noticed the colleagues' reluctance, but also went over and praised me about how quickly I've managed to understand everything and plan upcoming releases, and kind of said that I was doing more than he thought I would be. And this had never crossed my mind. I simply thought that I wasn't achieving what I or anyone else expected of me. It's very interesting to think how I would approach this scenario, a similar scenario, knowing that my thoughts are simply my mind kind of playing the saboteur. And going forwards, I will definitely strive to find resilience to recognise, accept and process my thoughts and behaviours with colleagues.
Wow. Hilary, can you come back in? And Christine, Emily, if you're there, Debbie, Kirsty and Eve, can you all come in as well? Hilary, what was your take on the videos by the ladies? What a really interesting, eclectic mix.
Very varied, very interesting. What I find fascinating is, when we sort of see how accurate these assessments are, I wanted to point out that our saboteurs are also our core strengths. But what they do is they take our strengths and then they magnify them to a very unhelpful way. So somebody that's a hyperachiever is actually goal orientated and very, focused and ambitious. But the hyper element is the bit that then becomes a negative. So similarly with pleaser, your natural strength, who was that? That was Kirsty, is empathizing and picking up on, cues with people. There's a natural strength there, but it gets taken to an nth degree in that value is your value is tied up with what people think rather than seeing your inherent worthiness and your needs being equal. So there's, they are our strengths, but then they get taken to an extreme, and we need to dial down the extremity in order just to have the strength as part of our psychology. You're looking perplexed there, Max. Am I not explaining that well enough?
No, you are. I was just going to bounce it over to Eve to say, Eve, thank you very much for being so candid about giving us a real work scenario that some of us have been in previously. With what Hilary said in Hilary's talk, Eve, over and above what you've already done, has that talk helped you, Eve?
Yeah, definitely. I did the finger rubbing thing, and actually I was even sitting listening to it made me relax, because I was actually thinking, oh my goodness, today I haven't done as much as I wanted to do, and that was going on while you were talking, and I just zoned back into where I am right now. So that as like a practical use has helped. But yeah, in terms of just even just doing the test as well, just being able to understand that it is a trait of mine, and I just need to process it and give myself a bit of slack, especially at the moment. I think everyone deserves that. So yeah, it has helped.
And hyperachiever. I was just going to say, you're always pushing yourself to achieve, and actually acknowledging what you have done in any day. Thinking of 3 things you've done well every day is another way of counteracting that. Yeah.
And Kirsty, firstly, I need to apologise because I just noticed that my esteemed film producer spelt your surname wrong on the YouTube video. So that my fault. With what you've already learned, you look after a prestigious amount of MDS trainees, graduates, and they're all fantastic. But I'm sure they're all a bit demanding as well. From what you've learned from Hilary, do you think you can deploy some of that to assist those MDS trainees?
Absolutely, I think. Especially the reflective parts. So you're talking about the hyperachievement. I think it can be sort of attributed to lots of the different saboteur things. They are brilliant skills to have, but having it striking it in that balance and realizing how that can help other people, rather than feeling sort of the weight of the world on your own shoulders to keep everything running smoothly. You are going to be helping people by sharing that load in a way.
And Hilary, it's a really good point actually that Kirsty makes. Is it possible to train the trainer? So if you've got someone who's a bit broken and through your training course, you give them the skills, the life skills to be better, can they take that and go through their team and train them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the ways that I really enjoy using this. It's actually working with individuals and then taking it and applying it to their individual leaders, for instance, and then applying it to their teams, because it really then you can really understand those interactions and those relationships, because somebody's stickler saboteur can kind of can provoke somebody else's kind of controller saboteur, for instance, and then you end up with those relationship dynamics. But if you want, it's a bit like, I suppose you do those Myers-Briggs type things to understand personalities. This is another way of understanding people's personalities. And then more to the point, by learning how to be more sage, you end up creating more sage interactions with others. So, you know, our stress responses can be what's the word, contagious, but so can our sage responses. So where we've worked to kind of come from our higher self, we can also then start bringing that empathy to play towards others. So it works on emotional intelligence, and it really works on helping improve team dynamics and relationships as well.
So here's an interesting question, Christine. Debbie, one for yourself. So I'm just going to label us as the slightly more mature crew of this conversation. We've all been on training courses when we've then walked out of the hotel or wherever the course has been held, and it's all been forgotten. Do you think what we're learning from Hilary could actually stay with us and make a fundamental difference to us, as well as to people coming through their career like Eve? What do you think, Debbie?
Yeah, I think it's about taking support and taking it on board and trying to live it a bit. So, like, for instance, the thing about positively planning your week and not letting yourself get too tired, that was a big learning for me, and I really had to learn it over time. So I think you can learn and take things with you, but you've got to take them with you and sort of accept it. And sometimes that can be hard.
Christine, your take, please.
Yeah, I would say in all the training that I've done, they're all about techniques and skills and, the things of working with other people. And I think this is the first one, I would say, where we've actually talked about how we can help ourselves. And I think we're certainly finding with MDS that issues of resilience and people's mental health are much more important. And much more important. They've always been important, but we're now starting to learn how to do things with them. And I think this is a different sort of training. This is actually trying to help you help yourself.
Yeah, I would agree.
Christine, well said. And we've got a really interesting question in from Kate. From Kate Rao. We'd be interested to know if women are more likely to be pleasers than men due to the social signals we're giving right from childhood. Ladies, Eve, can you just answer that before I throw it to Hilary? Because we'd be fascinated to hear your view.
I actually had this exact conversation with my partner over the weekend because I did my saboteur thing and had a minor argument about it. But yeah, I would say that we are because, growing up, well, I think children on the whole are taught to kind of please people and make sure that they stay quiet when they want to and all that kind of stuff. But personally, I think I do, but I don't know whether that's a normal thing.
Come on, Hilary, tell us what's right, what's wrong in respect to that question.
I think obviously girls are socialised to be nice and to look out for others and to think about others' needs. So there is a bias a little bit there. But I'm not sure. I mean, I've seen several male pleasers. You know, I've worked with men that are across the type. So I'm not sure we can be quite so generalised as that. I do think individual circumstances come into it and come to play. So because there's such a broad range of them, I don't think they're all predominantly pleasing. I don't know if I'm answering that, but I think that there is a gender bias, but in my experience, it goes across the board. So men can feel bad if they are pleasers because they're socialized to be the go out there, go getters, and that then has a negative sort of impact on them as well.
Max, I'm getting a bit stressed over the time, and my controller's taking over, and I want you to get on the record because I'm also a hyperachiever.
No problem. So just let me wrap up with Hilary. Hilary, just one final question that someone's just WhatsApp with me. Out of curiosity, they would like to know: do you work with more men or more women?
That's a good question. I'm beginning to work with more men. Historically, I've worked with more women. It's been more women that have come forward for resilience coaching, for instance. Now I'm getting a more broader cross-section. I think, COVID has just made everybody realise they need to look after their mental well-being. And that's sort of broken down those barriers, which is good in a way. I think it's healthy. And I run courses for individuals. My next one is on, I've got some spaces on the 15th of Feb. If anyone's interested, I do have some spaces. And I do work with organisations and do work in-house as well. So are you sharing my details? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we will do. But just for the podcast, Hilary, how can we find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Hilary Lee's CPCC, which is my kind of coaching title. I'm Hilary at theresilienceconsultancy.com, or you can message me on my mobile 07974 147 929. And I just look forward to connecting with anybody. And I would also share the saboteur assessment that everybody's been talking about. There's a link that I can send you if anybody's interested. So that's Hilary at theresilienceconsultancy.com for that link.
Fantastic. And we'll put that link on the post broadcast record so that everyone can get involved with it. So Hilary, you've been fantastic. We've learned so much. I think with like a number of these broadcasts, I personally am going to go back and listen to the podcast and just go through it step by step so I can pick all the nuances up. But you could just hear, especially when you were doing the slides, everyone just relaxing and actually taking a step out of themselves and finding a bit of normality for a couple of seconds. So Hilary, thank you. That's been absolutely brilliant. And everyone, just before we go to the breakout rooms, we're going to try and set this record. I'm looking for my pooch. So if everyone could turn on the audio and the video, we've got to hold your pet, or if you don't have a pet, your pot plant for 12 seconds, and then we're going to go over to the breakout rooms.
Oh, God.
And once they come on, give us a name please, for your pets. Magnus, come here.
This is Looper.
Looper.
Amazing.
Good dog.
I am muted. Oh, Phoebe.
Oh,
Phoebe and I go to the
flamingo.
same.
Look at all those pets. Oh,
I love all these animals.
How many of you go to the same hairdresser as your pet?
Who's having the flamingo? That's
I like the flamingo. That's cool.
I think that's the winner, Hilary.
I think it might well be.
Excellent. Well done, everyone. That was brilliant. Thank you, Hilary.
Good dog.
You're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure.
We're just going to say goodbye to everyone on Facebook and LinkedIn, and bye to everyone on the podcast. We'll see you at the 5th Women of Food and Farming in March.